Let's spend 10 minutes together to change your life.
So why don't you also just tell about your 3 frameworks, which is, buy right, finance right, manage right.
Sure. Let me jump in about the comment you said that you started working 5 years ago. And I commend you that you guys did that. And for me, it's all about family. And if you're saying to your spouse, I can't work with my spouse, just take a step back and do some work on yourself. Because for me, earlier on, I remember I had said something to my wife on the very first podcast we recorded, and it wasn't a great comment. It wasn't a great comment, but when you say things all the time, every time you may make a couple of flubs. And let me tell you something: if you can really work out your differences and understand that you're a team, and understand that really shed the ego, and if you can really work towards something together, and I think two is so much more powerful than one. And you're saying to yourself, well, I need my separation. You're married. You're a family. Think about how awesome it is that you get to talk to your spouse about a podcast that you're doing today, or a piece of content that's coming out, or we just refinance this property and we're pulling out millions. Now, I work with my wife and she could care less about real estate, but we do have a podcast together and we do create content together and we do have the vision about the family together. And when we go out to dinner at nighttime, hey, it's not separate. It's one and the same. And I think that makes the relationship even that much more powerful. And if you're out there saying, I can't work with my spouse, is that because of you? And that's probably some of the stuff that you have. Maybe there's not enough self-love for yourself. Maybe you're not as compassionate about yourself as you should be. Give your spouse a chance. And for me, it was always about trying to protect myself. I'm not very good at taking criticism from my family. Going back to my childhood, it was challenging for me. I was picked on like everybody else. I was bullied. My friends made fun of me. And the people closest to me were giving me criticism. Now, as I got older, you can tell me, hey, Gino, you suck. You look terrible. It wasn't really bothering me. But when it comes from a family member, it really hurts. It's really wounding. And for me to understand that, I was like, wow, that's the challenge of the block that I'm having. So all I'm saying to you is, if you're thinking about working with your spouse, stay in your own lanes like you guys are doing, which is great. But you guys can still complement each other and jump into each other's lanes. Learn how to communicate. We did an interview with Dr. Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. Understand how to learn how to communicate with your spouse. I wish I'd found the book 15 years ago. At least I found it. But if you can learn how to communicate with your spouse and work together, who else in the world do you want to trust more than your spouse? That's just an amazing relationship. As far as the 3-step framework, when I was investing before I met Jake, I didn't have a map and I didn't have a process. I just didn't. I was like the average investor out there. I want to find a deal. Well, what's a deal? That's the biggest mistake. We're looking for deals when we don't even understand the business. And when Jake and I started buying assets, he's in the garage one day and he looks at a wheelbarrow and he's like, wow, wheelbarrow profits. This is a 3-step framework. There's the 2 back legs of the wheelbarrow. That's the buy right and the finance right. They're both fixed. Once you buy this asset properly and once you finance the asset properly, you're going to be okay. But what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years, that finance right leg with this short-term bridge financing hasn't been very stable. So the wheelbarrow tips over. And even worse, a lot of operators out there are not operating their properties properly. They're out there just raising capital. Multifamily or any asset in real estate is like a business. It's like having a child. You can't just have the child and let it raise itself. That's why the wheel of the wheelbarrow is very, very important. It's daily. It's constant. It's always in motion. And what I want you to understand when you're looking at the 3-step framework, you can apply it to anything. You guys are buying short, rentals, hotels, Airbnbs. You still need to buy the asset properly. You still need to finance it properly, and you still need operations, whether you're operating yourself or you have third-party management. And if you can look at any asset you're buying through that lens, even a business, you need to buy the asset properly. You need to finance it, whether it's an SBA, seller financing, whatever that looks like, but you still need to run your business. And if you can set frameworks up for each one of those 3 pillars, you're just, taking a lot of more risk off the table instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to buy an asset. I don't know where I'm going to get the money from and manage it. Who's going to manage the thing? That's the problem that I've seen over the last couple of years where there's euphoria. There's a lot of money in the market. Money needs to be placed somewhere without any thought of it being a business. And don't kid yourself, because real estate is a business. We create multifamily entrepreneurs at Jake and Gino. And if you don't look at it from an entrepreneurial venture, you're going to fail. That's my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think there's a myth that people try to buy it and then just hope it goes up, right? But it's not luck. You buy it right, you make your money going into the deal, and then you hold it you improve the revenue and then you get more out of it. So it's like what you said, you got to buy it right.
And Adam, how do you buy right? And I'm going to touch upon what you just said. You do make money on the buy, but what people don't understand, and the biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes that I made early on was, please formulate an exit strategy. I mean, you're buying this asset, you really make money on your exit, whether you're selling the property or you're refinancing it. You're crystallizing that equity and you're putting it into the next deal. Because that's how I was able to leave my job within 5 years. I was working at the restaurant. I had 4 kids at the time, living in New York. It's expensive. I'm doing real estate on the side. Back then it was called, a second job. Now it's called a side hustle. Marketers. I love it. I was just working extra 20 hours a week doing the real estate thing. But I was fortunate because the restaurant, paid for my lifestyle, and whatever money I made in real estate with the refis, with the sales, or the cash flow was going back into the business. And that's really important. So understanding the buy is crucial, but formulating that exit strategy is important. And as far as how to buy properly, I think this is something we should really touch on real quick, especially for what you guys are doing as well. Whatever asset you're buying, please set up a criteria. I'm buying an asset early on. I'm buying mobile home parks. I'm buying self-storage. I'm buying them anywhere. I don't have a criteria right now. Figure out what market you're going to invest in. Choose a market. Become an expert in that market. The second thing is look at where in the market you want to invest. We look at median income. Median income is a great foreteller of what type of residence you have. Can they afford? So for us, anything $50,000 and higher is a pretty good median income in our market. Find out what it is in your market. Now, if you want to go into Section 8 or more affordable housing, maybe you're going into lower demographics, but just understand that's what you need to look at. And then obviously a couple other things. We don't like to invest in flood zones. So see if the property's in a flood zone. I'm not saying we're not going to, but there's more risk there. Then look at the age of the asset. Early on, Jake and I were buying much older assets when we first started, but as the market cycle got a lot longer, we're buying much newer assets now, 1980s and newer. The number of units, we can buy anything from 20 units. We just closed on a 4 unit 2 months ago. We've got a 33 unit under contract, anything from 20 units to 300 units. Now, as far as unit mixes for us, we love 2-bedroom townhomes with garages. If we can find those, check the box on that baby. Washer, dryer, hookups in the apartments. So I'm just giving you guys some ideas of what asset you're investing. If you guys are investing in Airbnbs, maybe you're saying to yourself, I want median incomes of 80 grand. We like more bedrooms. So if we can get duplexes with 4 beds in each, we like to have pools with them. We like to have brick. We like to be in this part of the market. So when you have all of that, if you're raising capital, you go to your investors and you can talk to your investors about what you're investing in. More importantly, when you go to real estate brokers who are the gatekeepers, you give them that buy right criteria, and they're going to go out there, and when they find the deal, they'll go, Jake and Gino, we've got this 33 unit. We're actually closing one in October. And it's interesting because we've got 2 other deals in the contract. This third deal came about. It checks every single one of our buy right criteria. We can't let this deal pass. So I don't know how we're going to close it. We're going to figure it out. But that's the power of having a criteria when you're buying right, because when you can focus on something, not only are you the focus, but people who have the deals end up calling you up and saying, Gino, I've got a 33 unit, 2008 build. They're 2-bed and 3-bed, 1.5 bath townhomes. Median income is 80 grand. Washer, dryer, hookups, 1,100 square feet. Basements are unfinished. Bro, that is a home run of a deal. That would not have come to us if she didn't know that we were looking for that type of asset. That's the power. And it's not like, oh, I want a deal. Now I know what kind of deal that I want, and I want you to formulate what kind of deal you're looking for.
And you took it like a step further because you have such a good buy box criteria that I pictured you picturing the tenant, picturing the homeowner there. So it could be somebody who's single and then they can stay there for years to come because their girlfriend moves in and they get married. It's a 2-bedroom, but then they could fit their toddler inside, and your washer dryer hookups because laundry will be important. So you've taken it such fine tune that you really know your market, and I think that is definitely so important.
Randy, there's a lot of work that's gone on. We've done this for years, and I think we fine-tuned it. That's why I created the education platform, because I think people don't understand the value of having somebody who's done it for so long. And the reason why we like washer dryer hookups is we know that that's a big amenity now, because residents are staying longer. Why 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhomes? Because in our market, they're like homes. There's garages there. There's some privacy there. Now, it's not to say that I'm not going to buy 1-beds, right? But we're going to pay a lot less for those because the rent delta between a 1-bed at $1,000 and a 2-bed at $1,500 is a big difference. And it's a different tenant profile. The 1-beds, maybe there may be young couples or they may be seniors, whereas at 2-beds, they tend to be a little bit more affluent. Understanding your market is really important, and you're going to change because as the market cycle changes and as these asset prices, these assets that are older, these C properties, believe it or not, they're back up to 7.5 A caps. So those prices are starting to come down. So it's not like I'm going to snob and say I'm not buying older assets. I'm just waiting for those prices to come down to make sense because I know those old assets need more tender loving care. They need more CapEx. So I'm taking more risk on those assets. So if I'm going to take more risk on those assets, I need to make sure that I'm paying the right price for those. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.